What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to yet another episode on Riding the Wave podcast with your host,
Aid.
MJ in your house. Y'all better recognize. And we got a very special guest. We got Rick. Rick is in the house. Say what's up, Rick?
What's up, everybody?
So Rick is a financial advisor at World Financial Group. He's been in the industry for about 20 years.
Almost 20 years, 17 years.
Almost 20 years. So if you ever have a financial question, this is the man with the plan. But let's start off, Rick, by introducing yourself. Where'd you grow up? Give the audience a taste of who Rick is.
So I'm Rick, and I grew up all over the place. You know, my dad was a gypsy hippie, a Vietnam vet, and so I didn't really grow up in any one place. We moved around a lot, and I lived in a van and a trailer, and we lived in hippie communes where we didn't even have like indoor plumbing or running water. I used to have to use an outhouse to go to the bathroom, and we were very poor. You know, we were definitely on the side of the have-nots, and I found myself in LA and Los Angeles in 8th grade, 9th grade. We came down here after my dad had some issues with the law. I was starting over.
Was he on the run?
Was he on the run? Well, he wasn't on the run, but he was facing 50 years.
Okay.
I'd be on the run.
So he's like, peace out.
Might be on the run, right? Yeah, he was facing 50 years, federal crime, and we relocated down here, and it was one of many times when my life was flipped upside down. And that's when I found myself in LA and kind of was introduced to the city life of indoor plumbing and central air and, normal clothes. And that was when I decided I preferred the city over the sticks.
All right, so we'll go back, right? Do you have any brothers and sisters?
No brothers and sisters. I'm an only child.
Yeah, only child.
Yeah. It was just me and him.
All right. So living in how was the transition for you as a kid from living in a van to now having no restrooms, but to having a shower? You're able to use the restroom to live in the city.
It wasn't like I'd never seen a shower or a bathroom before, bro. I mean, it was just that we weren't stationary. We didn't have that stuff. I lived in a lot of places where it just wasn't what we would consider, quote, normal, where, like you had a bedroom and all those kind of things. So city life was definitely different, The biggest difference is culturally, just I didn't really know how to fit in. I was a country boy. I didn't fit in. I wore like hand-me-down clothes, and I think adjusting socially was probably the hardest thing for me.
So, because you lived in Jacksonville, correct?
No. We lived in like small towns up north, all just small places, just the middle of nowhere, man. I can't even tell you, the middle of nowhere.
And were you like the only kid? Where was your mom at? Because you mentioned your dad was a Vietnam veteran, and then and your mom what was? So
the story is this, guys, is that my dad was a veteran, and he came from an abusive background, and so when he came back from Vietnam, like many guys, you've heard the story, he was messed up from the war.
Yeah.
And he brought my mom back. They met when he was stationed in Taiwan during the Vietnam War. He brought her back to the States and insisted that I be born here in the U.S. because back then mixed babies were not looked well upon in those countries. In China, you would be like really low. So he wanted me to be born here, but I think they got married. She had me, and then within a year she left. And so I was an infant when she left my dad and left me. Wow. So I never met my mom ever.
Have you ever looked for her?
I did find her eventually when I was in my 30s. I tracked her down. But I had never met her.
Like bounty hunter style?
No, not like that.
Like dog bounty hunter?
The funny thing is that, you don't go looking for that until you're ready.
Right.
Yes.
And when you're ready, it's not as hard as you think it might be. But it's getting ready that's the hard part. To be willing to go meet the person that left you. That's way harder than trying to actually bounty hunter someone, hire someone,
right.
Get the number to find her. That was really easy to find her, actually. It was
but
super easy.
What made you, after so long? Like what made you say, you know what, I'm just,
It's time.
It's time.
Yeah.
Well, it's deep. I mean, it goes into like relationships and stuff like that. But I was having a ton of failed relationships with women. And I came to realize that, the problem pretty much was with me. And that I was bringing a lot of my mommy issues to my relationships. And
Which is normal and
it's
common.
normal in the sense when you have trauma
Yeah,
like that
trauma.
to bring that to the table,
Right.
but it's not
Normal,
for
yeah.
a healthy relationship,
Yes.
right, guys?
Yes,
So
definitely.
ultimately, I was having relationship problems and couldn't have a good, healthy relationship, and so eventually, I decided that I need to address this issue and meet her to see what comes of that, to figure out how I can have a healthy relationship. And I wouldn't have the relationship I have now with my wife and my daughter if I hadn't done that. The reason why I didn't want to do that was fear of rejection. I don't know if you can relate to
Of
that,
course.
but
I think we all can relate to that.
when your biological mother leaves you, basically for dead, to be left with an alcoholic, drug addicted father who's messed up from the war, who's run off to live in the sticks, and he takes the kid with him, and the kid has no idea why he doesn't have a mom and why he's in this situation and doesn't understand it at 5 or 6 years old, and then that builds over like a long time. You have these rejection issues, and I was afraid of being rejected, and I was especially afraid of being rejected by my mother. And so that's what took me so long. And then when I was like 31 or 2 years old, I decided to hire the bounty hunter. No, I mean, I decided I wanted to find her and meet her, and I made 2 phone calls, and in those 2 phone calls, I got her phone number, and I called. And she picked up the phone, and she weirdly knew that it was me.
It was you, huh?
Wow.
And she said, "Is this Ricky?"
Wow.
And I said, "It is." And
just like that, like the moment she picked up.
Just like that.
Damn, that's crazy.
at first
Her mom's instinct. You think it was just like a mother's
What
instinct?
did you feel? What did you like?
Yeah.
Well, at first it was really cool. I felt like, oh, this is the moment, and it felt wonderful, and I was gonna meet her, and it was like this glowing, warm feeling in me. And I eventually went and met her, and who her husband is, and she has other sons, and I met one of them.
Your brothers. So technically,
half brothers.
yeah. So technically, you do have siblings.
I guess I do.
Yeah.
I do. But here's the F part, which is through that process of getting to know her. Pretty shortly after, she said to me, "Rick, you're a grown man, and I think that we shouldn't really, I really don't want to be in a relationship with you." Wow. And so my biggest fear came true, which is I reached out, I put myself out there, and then as she got to discover who I am, and I think that she started to see a lot of traits that were in my father, because I am my father's son. And that scared her, and so then she said she didn't want to be in a relationship with me, and I had to deal with that. But I think facing that and dealing with that, and then just being able to accept that as a man and move forward was what I needed so that I could have healthy relationships moving forward. So it was really hard, man. It was super hard. But anyone out there who, maybe was abandoned by a parent, maybe has fear of that, maybe it affects the way they have relationships or how they feel about themselves, then, I encourage those people to have the courage to face it, because facing the fear is like 99% of the battle. I think the outcome is really not as important as just facing whatever it is that you're afraid of.
You know what? I mean, I could relate, Rick. When I was 16, my dad left. My biological passed away when I was an infant, and my stepdad stepped in, took care of us, but he was a drug addict. And my parents got divorced, and and he was he was my father figure. He was my everything. And at 16, he left, or they got divorced, and we lived in Palm at the time. He stood out there. He kind of went further out, and we came back to El Sereno, where we were originally from. And as time progressed, I grew a lot of resentment towards him because I felt like a man should never leave his family, you know. So then I would at times I would be drinking, and we would talk, and I would just tell him how I felt. And at one point, you know, he was just like, "Don't call me no more." Like, don't call me no more. Man. And damn, like, it hurt. You know, it hurt. You know, especially I try to reach out to him lately. You know, because you know of my son, and I want him to have, like, I don't know. I in my fantasy, in my head, you know, like, I want my son to have a grandpa, and so we could have those memories, you know. And it's a fan, you know. It's like in your head. It's like this. Did you have a fantasy in your head, like when? Of course. Yeah. Of course. And what was your fantasy like, if you don't mind?
I still have the same thing you have,
okay,
James, which is, you know, she told me she doesn't want me in her life. She doesn't want to communicate. She doesn't want anything to do with me, you know. And so occasionally I send her a text with a picture of me with my wife and my daughter, and every like year and a half, I send her an updated photo of us as a family. And I guess there's part of me that is hoping one day she'll see that and say, "Oh, I was wrong, and I should have never told him I didn't want him in my life. See what a good person he is." But you're right, James. That's a fantasy, and that's not going to happen. Yeah. And I understand that and accept it. And as far as like our kids, your son and my daughter, what we can do is just be the best versions of ourselves for them. And frankly, I don't want that type of grandmother for my daughter.
Right.
If that's how she made me and this abandoned me, then I don't.
Yeah, like, you don't want her to abandon her, you know, like they build a relationship and then one day, I don't want this no more, and now they suffer. So
and the truth is, I have to ask myself, is it really that I want it for her,
or is it trying to do it for
me that I didn't get when I was a kid? And it reminds me of this story I learned from somebody that I learned recently. I was talking about this, and he called it the red party dress syndrome kind of thing. Have you heard of this before?
No.
So it's interesting. He said that, he said, you know, he tells me this story about the little girl who's 5 years old, and it's her birthday, and she tells her she's going to have a birthday party, and she tells her mom, I want a red party dress for my birthday. I want a party dress for my birthday party. So the birthday party comes, and the little girl is there, and she's like looking around like for the party dress. The party's happening. By the end of the party, no party dress. And she's, no party dress. Doesn't happen. So the next year, it's her birthday again. She goes, Mom, I want a party dress. I want a party dress for my birthday. And party happens, no party dress. Next year, the same thing happens. So after a while, the little girl stops asking
for the party dress.
Yep.
So then now fast forward, the little girl's now a 25-year-old woman. And it's her birthday. And her mom comes to the birthday, and she says, "Hey, honey, I have your party dress here." And it's the 5-year-old girl-size party dress. And the 25-year-old daughter looks at the mom and says, "What the F, Mom? Like, what do I need that for now? I needed it then when I was 5 years old, not now." And it's kind of like you and I, James. We're looking like for your dad or my mom that left us and all the things we missed from that. And we think that if we get that from them, we're going to feel better. But if we were to get it from them, it wouldn't fit you.
Right.
The old party dress. You're a man now or a grown person, and that little 5-year-old party suit's not going to fit you anymore, even though you think you want it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
So it hit me like a ton of bricks. I said, whoa, you know, everything that I think I wanted from my parents that I didn't get from my alcoholic, abusive, maybe dad or my mom who abandoned me, like, I don't need any of that now. I needed it then, not now, right? And so that's the party dress that I needed then. It won't fit me now, and it's kind of the same thing, if that makes sense.
And I think, go for it.
No, and it's just like I think that hits very like what you just said. It hits well, like because when my mom was pregnant with me, she met my dad. You know, so not my biological dad. Like he was gone. He had his own family. You know, so he left. And for a long time, you know, for a while, my best friend was my actual sister, but I didn't know at the time, and this was like third grade.
Whoa.
You know, so then she ended up leaving. I never knew why. You know, I was just like, wow, why did she go? And then later on, I find out that she was actually my sister's, and like my brothers knew my other half brothers as well, and I had a lot of anger, like towards my brother, like, why wouldn't you tell me? Why wouldn't you let me know? Why wouldn't you give me this information? So I had a lot of anger towards them. And like now being, you know, the age that I am, I'm starting to see like, hey, you know what? I have my family. I'm happy. Everything's good. Now, if I reach out to them, am I going to ruin their family because they have no idea about me? You know, and it's just like, well, do I really want to reach out to them? Do I really want to do that? Is that just the fantasy that I was looking for as, you know, being in the third grade versus me as a man? I'm happy. I have my family. Everything's going good. Both our families are probably doing well. Do I want to disrupt that?
Part of
or
me
just
wants to
leave
put
it?
on that party dress or have what you didn't get then.
Party suit. I would say
Now, or
suit.
party
I don't
suit.
wear dresses. No dresses.
I don't know you that well. I don't know you that well, bro.
And the moral of the story is not that you're putting on party dresses, guys.
But it doesn't fit us anymore.
Yeah.
You know, what we think, what we're missing in our childhood that still haunts us today, and that's what I've learned, which is, you know, we get these ways of responding or seeing the world that we were affected when we were kids, and we had to like protect ourselves or find ways to view the world. And now we're still operating like that, but that stuff doesn't fit us anymore. And so I think that was a big lesson for me in that, and that relationship with my mom, and understanding that or lack of a relationship with her was just, you know, realizing that I as a man, you take care, or a grown-up person, as an adult, you gotta take care of that stuff yourself now, and the things you needed then are different. That's all.
And then what was your relationship like with your dad? You know, your dad pretty much raised you. So what was that like?
It was bittersweet, man. You know, I mean, he was my world. You know, I mean, he raised me. It was just him and I. We were like on the road a lot and camping and fishing, and as a way of life, you know, you had to catch fish to eat dinner kind of situation, right? And we lived like by a kerosene lamp, and we lived in a van, an old Ford Econoline van, one of those 3-speed flat-face vans with the funny like lights. And he one night, he always tells a story how he was on acid and he cut the top of it off with a blowtorch and he welded on one of those canvas VW pop tops. And I used to sleep in that VW pop top, and he slept out in the van. And we lived in that thing for years. And a lot of people say, "Oh, that's so cool! How adventurous and stuff like that."
Yeah, but it's not. It's cool when it's 1 or 2 days. Like it's cool, but for it to be your permanent living quarters, not so cool.
I remember being in the same grade as my daughter. My daughter's in third grade right now, and being in third grade, but we lived in the van, and you know, like not being able to go to school because I was stinky. And so it was wintertime, and I remember we were parked out by like a creek. That's where we slept for the night on a school night. And in the morning, he would drive me down and drop me off at school, but I was too stinky. And it was snowing. It was snow on the ground outside, and there was a running cold creek. And I'd have to crawl down to that creek and like get creek water all over me and bathe a little bit in that creek. And, you know, and that was kind of how it was. But it was adventurous. I loved him like more than anything in the world. But I mean, he had a lot of his own issues, and I don't think that he was capable of being the kind of father that we all kind of, I think, aspire to be. And I don't think he was capable of doing it. He was raised by, you know, an alcoholic mom and was abused as a kid. She was abused. You know, abuse and alcoholism is like genetic in my family, generationally. You know, he was married and divorced 5 times. My grandmother was married and divorced 5 times.
That's crazy, huh? Like how people they do that cycle. They get married, they get divorced, get married, they get divorced. It's like...
I mean, you said your dad was in the Vietnam War, and as a young child, I'm sure you weren't able to pick up on it. But now being a man, were you able to see that he had a lot of PTSD from the war that might have...
Well, he was angry. He was angry, and, you know, I think he had a lot of pain. I think he, like many people, he used alcohol as a way and drugs as a way to mask that pain. And the result was, you know, remember, being in a place one time. We lived in a place one time in a small town called Big Pine. I don't know if you guys have heard of Big Pine. It's on the way to Bishop, on the way to Mammoth on 395.
Big Pine. It sounds familiar.
And we lived in this weird place. It was like a studio apartment upstairs, and the bathroom was outside and downstairs. And at this time, he was in his heyday of, probably of substance abuse and alcohol. And, I remember there being like lines of drugs, like white powders and bottles of booze everywhere. I mean, there was times when he would get the check from the government, and like most of the money would go to alcohol first, not food. That was how it was. Like beer money was first on the list before food. And that was hard.
And like these stepmothers, how were they towards you for the period of time that they were in your life?
Transient mostly, I mean, people came in and out of my life all the time, and sometimes they try to mother me, or there was it.
Some of them did try.
It was just weird, I don't think I was ever real receptive to it, and my father, women were in and out of his life a lot, when I was a kid, and I would just say, like, I experienced all the drugs and alcohol, and I remember one time, as an example, he drank himself into basically his heart stopping. He basically had a heart attack.
Oh my God.
I was about second or third grade at the time.
My God.
And
so our kids' age, pretty much.
Pretty much our kids' age, yeah. And I remember, like, he wasn't breathing, and I'm like scared, and I remember running outside as a little boy and running out downstairs and knocking on all these doors, yelling, "Help! Help me! Help me! Help me!" And someone opening up and saying, my daddy's not breathing, my daddy's not breathing, or whatever. And then I have the next memory. I remember being in the ambulance with him with all like the stuff attached to him and the thing. And I remember riding in the ambulance, going to the hospital, thinking in that moment, like, all right, I'm going to be an orphan. Like, I'm going to be an orphan. I'm going to be in an orphanage. I don't have any other family. Like, I don't know what's going to happen to me. And then I remember being at the hospital, like, tiptoeing up over, like, the glass, looking into the thing, and, having that same thought, I'm going to be an orphan. And, so that kind of thing happened to me.
And that's crazy a
few times.
At second and third grade, it's like you're already thinking, I'm going to be an orphan, you know? Like, that blows my mind. Yeah. That really does blow my mind. Like,
so, I mean, those are just like some stories on, like, childhood for me was definitely challenging. I'm not going to say it was all bad. I mean, obviously,
good and
I'm not saying it's all bad, but you're asking me, like, what are the things that affected me today? And those are things that profoundly affected how I turned out, or the challenges I have as a grown man today, or I've had in the past.
And what were the highlights, like the good moments of your childhood with your dad?
Well, I mean,
you say you did a lot of fishing. That's cool. Was that your thing?
Like I'll tell you one cool story, okay? I remember one time we were out, we were living in the van. I was up on that canvas pop top ride, and he was downstairs, and we were parked by a river. And I remember waking up at, like, in the morning, when you live out there, you wake up when the crickets and everything starts going off, you know what I mean? So it's like kind of like sunrise. And I remember waking up, and I'm like, I can't open my eye. It's like, they're like, and I start crying, "Oh, Dad, I can't open my eyes." And I'm like, barely can see it, and I look down, and he looks, I was like, "I can't open my eyes either." And we both got bit by mosquitoes. And they were both like swollen, like Rocky Balboa style, I had a lot of cool memories like that. And, there was times in my life where he was my best friend. And, when he passed away a few years ago, it was really difficult. And, he was the only family I ever had, really, that was as tough as he was, and as the challenges, and as much as I ragged on him a little bit. He was the center of my universe. I loved him so, so much, and it was so hard to lose him. And I wish that we could have made things a little bit better between us. I wish we were both capable of coming to that place, but as we've talked about, the things I thought I needed didn't fit me anymore. you know,
Right.
the party suit, the party
Right.
dress, whatever you want to say. But I miss him, and I wish that I could have been a better son and more forgiving of him, because I don't think it was all his fault that he didn't.
I don't think it was really like
He did not want to be
Right.
want to be like, you know, that he had his own things, and you know, sometimes it's hard to see that when you're a little kid.
So resentment, right? Would I say you had a little bit of resentment?
I did.
Okay, and like now to an audience member that maybe has a certain maybe resentment towards their parent, like what is something you would say? Because yeah, I mean now he's gone, and I can imagine the regret, you know, like when people say like, what is your biggest? I don't have any regrets. I think we all have regrets. Everybody has regrets.
Of course.
Like
everyone has regrets.
I could sit here and say like one of my biggest regrets in life was my grandma passed away, right? But the day she passed away, my uncle called me and he told me, hey, you know, come see your grandma. I don't think she's gonna make it, right? But my selfish self was, oh, you know what? I'm gonna go to the gym. I'm gonna continue my day, right? And I remember it was like around 3 something in the afternoon. He called me. And he's like, your grandma, she passed away. And that hurt me so much because I was like, what the fuck, James? Like, really? Like, you were so caught up on with yourself. And when she needed you, you weren't there.
Yeah.
You know, so that to me was one of my biggest regrets.
Yeah.
You know.
I can see that.
So, but yeah, but going forward, like, yeah, so what would you kind of tell an audience member or just a person
I
that's...
think you nailed it, man. I mean, I think that's it right now, which is so many times, like, even with me, like, I just went through this whole thing, and that's really all about me, right? You know, it's all about me and, like, what I went through and how hard it was, and we hold on to that really tightly sometimes as victims of those situations, so to speak. And it's hard to let go. And I think my regret's similar to yours, which is, you know, I wish I could have let more of that go when he was alive. And that's what I would tell people, is to try to let it go now and not after they're gone. And, you know, because you're going to let it go eventually. So if you try to let it go now, then you can have more peace and maybe have more quality experiences in life with those people that you really love. It's just been hard. You love them. It's just been hard.
Yeah, definitely. You talked about fishing with your dad. You know, I like that saying, you give somebody a fish, they'll eat for a day.
Yeah.
You teach them how to fish, they'll eat for their
a
life.
lifetime. Yeah.
Do you feel that, you know, the experiences you had with your father made you self-sufficient?
I do. I think that, you know, he taught me a lot of quality things that are instilled in me today. You know, he was a military man.
So survival skills, it seems like.
Not...
Well, okay, it seems like there's an apocalypse. You're going to be just fine. You're going to be able to fish.
He's low-key an assassin.
You're going to be able to fish, gun it, shower in the pot. Like, you're good.
I mean, we all can if we have to, certainly.
Yes.
But, I mean, I don't really see myself that way. You know, I don't see myself that way. But I do see myself as, like, super resilient. I see myself as, you know, strong-minded and disciplined, and I have a high level of commitment. And I think my dad taught me a lot of good things and a lot of bad things that I learned to turn into goods. You know, like, you know, he was very structured, and he, like, in military, he was a very intelligent man. But there's all things I learned from him, like, thanks, Dad, for teaching me that so I don't do that.
Yeah.
You know,
right.
Thanks for showing me that so I don't do that in my life, you know, like some of the abuse and the dysfunction. And thank you for teaching me that so I don't do that in my family.
Yeah.
So I don't do that to my daughter and my family, right? So there's a little bit of both there. There's a little bit of both there.
Was there anything that wasn't really that he didn't teach you, but you kind of learned because that's what you saw and that's what you experienced, like learned behavior?
Well, I mean, even with our kids, they do what we do, not what we tell them to do. So it's more like we are more impacted by the actions, right? So I think for me, I was very anti drugs. I was very into school. I was very into sports. I poured myself into that stuff as in junior high and high school. That's all that mattered to me, frankly. And all I wanted to do was go to school, and I didn't ever touch drugs when I was in school, really. Not until the very, very end of until like my senior year of high school, I was completely like against all of it.
And was it more peer pressure, or it was just kind of like, let me just...
It's funny, it was like I was so against it, and then somewhere along the way, and I don't know how it happens or when it happened, I do know what led to it, which is I was a basketball player, and I got hurt my junior year pretty severely, and so my basketball career kind of ended.
What did you play? A point guard or?
Second, shooting guard.
Okay,
shooting
okay.
guard. But my basketball career kind of came to an end, and I had all this extra free time that I never had before, and I had worked really hard in school. So I was done. My senior year was all just some basic electives. That's all I had to do to graduate. So I had all this time, and I just started surfing and hanging out with guys who, we were just, you go surf in the morning, all of a sudden, you're smoking joints and you're doing this kind of stuff. And then it flipped and it became like competition with my dad. Oh. And it went from, I don't want to be like my dad.
I'm going to outdo him. I'll do my dad. I'll do him.
That's what it became. It became that. And so I went through a decade in my 20s and from 19 to 30, where I was just very rebellious, and I was partying and clubbing. I was a bartender, and I was just dating a lot of people, and just fun was all that mattered. And I was really just trying to numb all the pain from all the stuff we already talked about,
definitely.
and like it starts to really come up in your 20s, all that stuff, and I didn't know how to deal with it. I didn't know how to deal with all the stuff that was happening inside. So the logical choice was to pour myself into that, and I became really reckless. I became a really reckless person, and was really reckless with my body, was really reckless with my relationships, and was kind of like, F you, Dad. You think you can, be a irresponsible, crazy, maniac guy? Well, watch me.
I could do it too. What you could do, I could do better.
I can do better.
I'm not lying. That's kind of how it went for me, and that was kind of where it went down. How it was.
And how has everything that you've gone through as a child like shaped you, the man you are today?
Well, it's funny, you would think when we look back, like, would you change? Like, would you change? What would you change in your past? To be like, I think about that. Like, who am I today? And I'm proud of who I am today. Could I be who I am today if I didn't go through the stuff I went through? And there's so many times in my life where I had wished a different life, and maybe you can relate. I wished when I was a kid. I used to look at other families and other kids and be like, why do they seem happy or have all this and I don't? Why are they on the haves and I'm on the have-nots? And so I used to wish that I was born in a different family. I was born in a different situation. And even in my 20s, I wish, why me? I became a victim of everything that happened to me. Why was it me that I was selected for such hardship, so to speak, and pain? How was that fair? And but now the man I am today, I wouldn't change it. And because now I'm the man I am today is very resilient. The man I am today can overcome adversity. The man I am today can problem solve. The man I am today is able to be emotionally strong for his family and be able to lead his family, and all those things I think are important that I think, unfortunately, many people have a challenge with,
Oh, definitely. I still have challenges now, just to be in control of your emotions and being in line with your thoughts and not allow you to go back to, whatever. Hey, well, you know what? I'm just going to go back to whatever helped me suppress all that anger and frustration, and I don't want to deal with it. But now it's just, again, made me wiser and stronger. Always thinking that, I could just drink my thoughts away, because I was an angry drunk. I was angry drunk. I had so much, like, nobody can tell me anything because I was, let's go, ready to fight. You know what I mean?
And he lost all the fights, by the way.
I never got into.
He was the
never got into any crazy fights because my friends would always, hey, relax, chill out, what's going on, keep me calm and all that. But at any second I was ready to go because all that anger that I just didn't know how to handle, didn't know how to control, I couldn't control my emotions, my thoughts. It's just all hate. Like, I'm gonna take it out on your face.
And how is it now, though? Is it
now?
Still there?
It's not there no more.
I beg to differ. I beg to differ.
Yeah. I look back at myself and I see who I was. I don't like the version of myself back then. So right now I'm working on myself and trying to be the version that I see moving ahead and in the future. But I do sometimes go back and think about how I was just so I could remind myself to, hey, stay calm, be cool, allow nobody to get you out of character. Because why are you going to give them that opportunity or that energy?
Yeah, because honestly, I could sit here and say, like, same thing like you gentlemen, I had a lot of anger. I don't know where it came from, to be honest. But a lot of it had to do with my dad leaving, right?
So you know where it came from.
Well, I guess. I was just saying. I just asked the wrong question.
You said it.
Yeah, so like I would drink and I would like, hey, I would want to fight people and like no one wanted to drink with me. It's like, and one thing my stepdad did tell me is like, when you have a drinking problem, when you wake up the next day after drinking and then people are mad at you. That's when you have a problem. And then and then I was Mr. Machismo. All about respect. You gotta respect me, right? I don't know why I was like that. But what really kind of just changed me was once my son was born. Yep. Once my son was born, parenthood was like, I don't want him to be like me. I don't want him to have and I take parenthood very serious, and that's when you got to start doing the work. That's when you either got to start going to therapy, you start getting uncomfortable, peeling the layers. Why am I like this? How come I tick? Why am I drinking so much? What am I running from? So once you start figuring all that stuff out, things get a little easier.
I agree with you 100%, James. I mean, I think I had my daughter a little bit later in life, which was kind of an advantage as I was reckless before. And but even having my daughter a little bit older, that's when I really had to really start to push myself to go through some of these self-discovery things and to learn about myself, so that, because I believe that, when you raise a son, your job is to, make his life tough and teach him about life. But with a daughter, I feel like it's to show the example of the man you want her to marry. Yes. And I always think of this concept of your daughter will either marry the best version of you or the worst version of you, depending on what you show her most. And so I always have that running in my mind. And so early on, and even, none of us are perfect, but I do work at that, because I do always put that in the front. Like, am I acting right now? Is she seeing me? And am I a good example of the man that I want her to be with in the future? Yes. Or am I a bad example of what she's going to be attracted to? So, like, for example, if I speak down to my wife, if I treat her poorly, then she's going to be attracted to a guy who treats her, speaks bad to her, and treats her poorly, and then now becomes this kind of
the learned behavior.
Yes,
learned behavior.
So I agree 100%, and that's how I think about things.
Yeah, because I mean, my kids, my boys are 18.
Wow.
But they're not twins. Me and my wife now, we've had boys from our previous relationship, but we've met when our boys were 4 and 7 months. So they're only 3 months apart.
Oh, wow.
And then now now the boys are 18, my daughter's 16, and not too long ago, I apologized to them. I apologized for showing somebody that I didn't want to be, somebody that would come home and, like MJ was saying, wake up and kind of tiptoe around the house and see how my wife was acting and my kids were acting, because if they're like, oh, hey, Dad, all right, cool, I didn't do anything, like, because I don't know what happened last night, I didn't do anything, but if she's mad at me and she's not talking about it, it's like, oh, man, what did I do? What did I do? And now, I did apologize to them and told them that I would make the changes, and I would, I want them to be a better version. I want them to surpass whatever I accomplish in life, because they can be as great as they want, as well as they set their mind to it, and so yeah, I could definitely relate.
I think that takes a lot of courage, man, to go that and say that, and to tell on yourself to your family like that, to the ones you love the most. It takes a lot.
That is important to, when as parents, because I mean my son's 8, but I apologize to him when I'm out of line. I didn't, because it's no excuse. It's because he's my son and I'm the parent. I don't have to be apologetic if I do something wrong to him. Accountability is something I wasn't real familiar with as a child growing up. It's something that wasn't really taught. It's something I learned. And so moving, like, as a parent now, like, I want him to be able to say, you know what, Dad, I made a mistake. I'm sorry. I don't want him to make excuses. Oh, well, it's because of this, or no. It's like, hey, we made a mistake. We apologize. We correct it, and then we move forward. We don't hold grudges.
I never apologize, by the way.
I'm never wrong. I do everything right.
Monica and your daughter are just like, man.
I don't know how we got on that, but
so everything that you went through, what was your turning point? So you graduate high school. Okay, so let's go back. You graduate high school, right?
I graduated high school.
Okay, and then what, from 18 to all the way 30? What
Life
was
on the fast lane?
Yeah,
I'll be short. I mean, I graduated from high school. 2 weeks later, I moved out of my dad's place and I moved to another state. 2 weeks after I graduated from high school.
What state?
To Arizona.
Arizona.
To Phoenix.
Okay.
And
why there?
A girl.
Okay.
A girl. There was a girl.
There's always a girl. There's always a girl.
A girl I was chasing, so I moved out to Arizona for a year and did that. And then after a year and a half, and I ended up, coming back to LA and started working in the restaurant business. And I was in the restaurant business for over 10 years. I waited tables, I bartended, I managed. I pretty much did everything, but primarily I was a bartender for like 10 years. And, I partied and had a good time, and I was right here in the San Fernando Valley. And I kind of told you all that. The turning point was right around 2006. So after I put myself through college, I got a degree in psychology because I was psycho.
You want to control your own mind.
I wanted to psychoanalyze myself, but that doesn't work. And so, but I got a degree in psychology, and I worked my way through college bartending, and I got out with no debt. I had no college student loans or anything, which was great. But I was at that point, I was like, I was 30 years old. I had been bartending. I had a college degree. Didn't know what to do with it. Still hadn't had like a real job. And I eventually opened up a restaurant in Hollywood on Sunset because that's all I knew. And I knew some guys that had money and wanted to be in the restaurant business. So we pooled everything together. I opened a restaurant in Sunset, and I hated it. I absolutely hated it. I was miserable. I didn't enjoy it at all.
What is it that you didn't like about owning a restaurant? For these potential people who like, I want to open up my own restaurant?
It's hard, man. I mean, first of all, back then the overhead's a lot. You gotta have have a lease and a place to do business, and you have a lot of liability with the restaurant. At that time, I was a location on Sunset Boulevard. We're talking $25,000 or $30,000 a month overhead.
Oh my God.
You have a perishable product and seafood and vegetables and stuff that if you don't sell it fast enough, it goes bad. You have employees and the liability, and it's just a lot, and you got to sell a lot of pad thai and boba and to-go stuff to cover a $30,000 a month overhead, right? So this is very stressful. I got no time off. I made less money owning the place than I did working as a high-end bartender, so it didn't work out for me. And so when I decided to leave out of the business and exit the business, I just basically had to give up my investment of the business. So I was out a considerable amount. It was my life savings at the time. And I was basically, to tell myself, I was having another failed relationship. I was going through a bankruptcy and my condo was being foreclosed.
Oh, man.
So a rock, I guess we could call it like a rock bottom.
It was basically a rock bottom, and I was partying a lot, and I had habits that were not healthy financially, physically, and they were addictive and destructive to my life. And so this is why I wound up at 33 years old with no business and no family still, a condo that was being foreclosed on, a Mercedes that was being, repossessed, and, 6 figures in credit card debt, and just on and on and on and on. Okay? And I think, you get a certain point in life when you're in your early 30s, you're not a friggin' kid anymore, man.
Yeah.
Like, you can't be like, oh, well, I'm still young, I'll figure it out. No, I was in my early 30s and I still hadn't done any of the things I just mentioned. It's kind of a wake-up call, guys. Kind of like, wake the fuck up.
Yeah.
Can I say that?
Yeah.
Wake the fuck up.
Wake the fuck up, man. Like, dude, you're 33 years old and you're a fucking loser.
Yeah. And it's times that you need to tell yourself that.
That's the truth.
Like, you need to look in the mirror and you gotta, you're acting like a bee.
You're a fucking loser.
Yeah.
You gotta call it what it is.
Yeah.
If you want to get better, you gotta know where you're starting at. And at that time, everything I just described, you would call that person basically a loser.
Yeah.
They're partying, they're doing drugs, they're losing all their stuff because they can't handle their money, all this stuff, the debt, all of it adds up to a failure. And what changed was I had a good friend of mine that I was in the restaurant business for a while with. His name is Brian.
Brian,
what up? And Brian is 10 years younger than me. And, he was in the mortgage business when I was going through this thing I just described, and he was doing really well because in 2004 and 5 and 6, the mortgage business was still blowing up right before it crashed. He was doing really well, and he had gotten married, he had a couple of kids, he bought a home, he had a boat, he had the life going on, and I'm like, man.
And keep in mind, he's 10 years younger than you.
And I'm like, this fucking guy is 10 years younger than me. I trained him how to do the restaurant business, and now 10 years later, look at what he's doing, and look at where I am. He's making $300,000 a year and doing all this stuff, and I'm going bankrupt, I'm losing my car. I'm like, I just named it all, right? So, I asked him, what do I do? I took him out and said, what do I do? And it was very humbling to go to someone who was younger than me, who I was more of a big brother to, and now I had to kind of come to them as a failure and say, hey, can you help me? Can you point me in the right direction? Will you mentor me, little brother?
Yeah, and it's crazy, because you would think you're the older adult that
So
you should be mentoring him.
That's right. Well, that's what we want to think, but mentors come in many sizes,
they do.
And ages.
Yeah.
And mentorship doesn't have to be from older people.
Yeah. I completely agree with that.
And wisdom can come from all places. So I asked him, and he said, you need to do this thing. He called it the men's weekend. And I didn't know what it was, and I didn't have any money. I was broke as a friggin' joke. And he said, I don't have money to do it. I don't know what it is. And, I don't, it's in Oakland. I don't think I can do it. And he said, do you want to do it? And do you want your life to change? And I said, I want my life to change. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like everyone, so many people, everyone wants, I want my life to be better, but
You don't want to do certain things.
I don't want. I want it on my terms. I want it to be better on my terms.
Yeah, your terms.
I want to lose weight, but I'm not dieting and exercising. That's just not happening.
I'll go get surgery.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, so that was kind of where it was at, and I said, all right, well, I mean, he's all, if you want what I have, this is what's going to be required. And I had to chew on that for a minute, and then I basically said, okay, I'll do what it takes. And he helped me, and that was a way of humbling myself, asking for help. And being willing to take action toward stepping into a different life somehow. And I didn't know how to get there. I didn't have mentorship. I didn't have men in my life. I didn't have family really to lean on. I really felt alone and out there in the world failing. And I felt really alone. And so I said, okay, I'll do whatever it takes. And he helped me get there. And I didn't have any money to do it, and he took me to this place that I had to go to, and he drove me to Orange County to this event, and he said, we're going to help you get registered at this event. And it was $800 to go to this event, and I had zero money, nor did I have money for a hotel or travel or anything. So we get to this event, and on the way he stops by a cigar place, and he buys a cheap box of cigars, and he buys like this box of like 2 dozen cookies. And we go to this place, and he says, you're going to sell these cigars for $30 a cigar. It was like a $25 box.
Yeah. So you got to hustle.
So I go out there, and guys are buying a few of them, and I made about $100 or so, and I'm still like $700 short. And then they put me in this circle, and one of the men asked me, well, how bad do you want to change your life? And are you willing to do whatever it takes? And I said, yeah, I'm willing to do whatever it takes. He said, all right, well, I'll give you $1 for every push-up you do. And he said, how much are you short? And I said, $700.
We're going to start doing 700 push-ups.
And I'm like...
Non-stop?
And I'm like...
I guess I'm have
so
a sore chest.
So I started doing push-ups in this park. And, I'd probably at about 30 or 35, and I'm already starting to fail out. There's no way I'm There's no way I'm doing 700. And so they start saying, and I'm like a failure, and they say, what do you need to do? And I'm like, I don't know, and they finally get me to the place of asking for help. You need to learn to ask for help. Nice. And so I asked for help, and they lifted me 600 times. Well, I did it. And so I ended up going to this weekend. They helped me get there, and I couldn't lift my arms.
Yeah, I could imagine.
I literally couldn't lift my arms. But that's how I got to this thing they call the men's weekend. And in that men's weekend, that changed my life. That was the beginning of my life taking a whole new trajectory. And
so what was the men's weekend? What was that? Is it still around?
Brian.
It's still around. It's still around. And what it is, it's a play. It was, they have a men's and a women's, and I'm not going to get all into it, but for what it is, it's a place for, in this case, men. It's all men. And it's just really a playbook on how to be a good man. And what that means is, how to be a good married husband, stay married and have some skills to stay married. And they talk about success and raising kids and relationships with other men and getting help and concepts like, commitment over ego and these kind of things. And so I'm big on commitment, and these are the discipline. This weekend taught me disciplines that I hold on to today that I think are a big reason why I've been able to transition from a lot of the bullshit I shared with you guys early and all that story. But that's kind of the wreckage. But I think the men's weekend gave me the tools to climb out of that.
Right. No, definitely. Because I think it's also like, I think we all need to kind of stop and look around and look at our surroundings and who we're around, and what are they doing, like what are their goals, where are they going, how are they moving, where do they want to be in life, what type of person do they want to be, whether it's family, friends, acquaintances. And I think I've been doing that a lot lately. And I love all my families and friends, and I'll always be there for them, but it's like, for me, it's time to start surrounding with like minds, surrounding myself with like minds, so then I could be the version of the person that I see 5, 10, 15 years from now, God willing, I live that long, or even longer. But Definitely, I see how important that group was.
It is, because what happens is, you're able to, at that time, I was going to say, all right, what is the man that I always wanted to be look like? And I'd create this, I'd visualize and have this complete vision of the man that I always wanted to be. And then, I would see men who basically have that, who epitomize that man that I want to be. And then, I would get in a relationship with them and work with them and eventually try to gain mentorship from them, because I think mentorship is very important. And, you learn by example, just like our kids.
Yeah.
And I needed men's examples of really good men so I could just follow that. And so I didn't know what that looked like necessarily because my dad was kind of a crazy guy. So I needed other examples. And so the men's weekend put me into a pool or into an environment of men that I kind of strive to be like. And so then I started kind of emulating them and doing the things that they do.
That's phenomenal. That is phenomenal.
Copycat, I guess.
Yeah.
Copy what you want.
All right. So going back to that camp that you're at, or not camp, but that
Call it the men's weekend.
Men's weekend.
Men's weekend. Got to say that strong.
Call it the men's weekend.
But it's crazy how like God put that man Brian in your life at that moment. Imagine if
shout out Brian.
Imagine if you would have never met, like if Brian had never reached out to you, never would have gone to that.
Never done. That's right.
Like,
I don't know where I'd be today.
Imagine though, it's crazy.
I don't want to imagine because I don't know. Like I don't want to imagine. But it's kind of two-part because I did. That men's weekend was a game changer for me because. My dad, like some dads, they give their sons a playbook on life. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Have you ever seen that with
fathers
fathers and sons?
Yeah,
Man, they got it. Like that is so cool. And his dad taught him how to do all this stuff, or taught him about money, and taught him about how to be successful, and cars, and this and that, and some dads like that. And or even with whatever it is, but they give their kids a great playbook on life. And, some of us miss on that great playbook. We're given like a playbook with like a lot of missing pages and bad plays that don't work. You know what I mean?
Yeah, throw that playbook away.
Right. So the men's weekend gave me the playbook that worked. And, I could follow a playbook. I'm not a genius, but I could follow a playbook. So it gave me a playbook that worked. And it gave me men to help me learn how to implement that playbook. Got it? Yeah. So that is very valuable because I use it today in everything that I do. But the other side was within the first year of me doing the men's weekend, I joined the World Financial Group and I met Monica. And how together the two things changed my life. The two environments changed my life.
So this, were you going every week, or was it just kind of like that one
time?
Oh, that's a good question. Okay, that's a great question. So no, you go to the weekend, the men's weekend, for like 3 days. Okay. It's like a 3-day thing, and then when you're done, you go into like a 6-week program where you meet every week, and they kind of teach you how to work the concepts that you learn there. Because it's like you learn a lot in a weekend. You go to any kind of any kind of thing where it's an event like that, it's like trying to drink out of a fire hydrant. It's like,
yeah, so much, yeah.
I'm still thirsty, but I'm all wet. I'm not sure I understood everything. So they put you through a program to kind of understand it, and then after that, you do weekly team where you do weekly meetings, and I did they have an organization, and you can go through do all these jobs and learn leadership and mentorship and. You can teach it to other men, basically, and I got to do all of those things. I got a chance to do all of it, and I learned a lot from that. But every week, and to this day, I still have a men's team that I meet with, and we just met on Wednesday.
You know what? And that's something that I wanted to do. Like, that's one of my goals is when I get out of weekends, I want to do something like that. Like, where we get together and we work out, we talk about whatever, our kids, whatever issues. Like I just feel like at times, because we're supposed to be head of the household, be be the strong, be the rock, and so forth, right? Not be vulnerable. But sometimes we do need that for ourselves. We do need to be vulnerable. We do need a place to where we could just talk about whatever it is that we're going through, you know, and where there's no judgment, where it's like, bro, we got you.
Yeah, it's not really about like the gym necessarily, though. Like,
I mean, just healthy.
Men get closer by doing shit together.
Yeah.
But it is exactly what you said, James. The purpose of it is to go there because, like you said, you got to be strong for your family. You sometimes got to stay buttoned up, as we call it. You know, you can't get too, waffly, so to speak. And so that builds up in you. And have you ever seen somebody snap? Or just, and that's because they don't have a place for it to get out.
Yeah.
And so if you have a team of guys where you're having a bad week and, stuff's coming up about your dad or work or you failed a test or whatever is going on, and it's really, you can go there and like, man, this is what's going on with me. You can let it out and whatever it looks like, and they can handle it, and then you can go back to your life and not blow up on the people that you care about more.
And number one, it's like, we hold each other accountable. If you're out there doing stuff you're not supposed to do, and you're sitting there cheating on your wife or whatever, it's like, hold on, bro. Like, what are you doing? Don't, because we hide, we internally are hiding our secrets. We don't want no one to know.
Well, that's right.
We want to keep it a secret, but, and then that secret just, it eats at us,
Secrets are.
Yeah, So, that's awesome. So then you go to this program, you kill it at the program. How did you end up in World Financial Group?
Well, I did the men's weekend, and I was on a men's team, and I was doing that work on myself.
Did you ever want to quit? Did you?
Anything worth doing, you want to quit. Doesn't matter what it is.
So when you were there, you went there, were you just like, because it wasn't like kind of like anything to do with church or religion like that? It was completely okay.
But I mean, anything good, hard, different, anything that there's a lot of things we know we need, but we don't necessarily want to do it, but we know we need it.
I agree.
And so that was kind of what's coming up for me, which was I don't really like it. I'm not a joiner. I'm not a fraternity guy. I'm just not that kind of guy. I'm kind of a loner kind of person and introverted and on my own, so to speak. So it didn't appeal to me to being part of a team or being with groups of men and an organization and having to show up every week and do jobs and be in a relationship. Like, that was kind of uncomfortable for me. But I knew I needed that to become the man I wanted to be. If I stayed who I wasn't going to have all the things that I wanted: family, kids, wife, business, relationships that mattered, purpose in my life, being the kind of person that other people want to follow or emulate, or more importantly, being someone that you'd be proud that your kids would become or be with. So that's really like the big pusher for me.
So that was your motivation.
That's my big motivation right there. And then I fell in the company here at World Financial Group, and that was just by luck, like another one of those lucky, scenarios. My best friend was on somebody's list, and they called, and he came in and was like, this isn't for me, but talk to my buddy Rick. He's the guy for this. He'll love it. They brought me in. I interviewed. I was very skeptical. I was like, I'm not sure this is for me, but I was interested in finance, and I wanted to own a business, and I liked the environment. Again, it was an environment that was uncomfortable. It was very team-oriented. It was very growth driven and self-improvement driven, and I was in that state of mind from the men's weekend, where like, I'm making changes, and I saw this as a path to becoming the version of the man that I always want to be. And so I took those two environments and I just married them together and went like, just pretty much that's all that was I was submersed in the men's weekend and business development. And that was it. Boom. And I've been doing that work now. We're in 2024. So I did my men's weekend in 2007. I joined the company in 2008. So, I've been doing this work just under 20 years.
And look at you
now.
Look at
man.
Look at me now. Still nervous.
You know what, though?
Look at me now.
Those probably aspects are just something that's probably a part of you, So how did you end up meeting your wife? You know, because you mentioned about relationships, and how did you end up meeting your wife, and
what was your different approach?
Yeah, there you go. That's the answer. Yeah, there you go. There you go. There you go. There you go. That's a good. That's the question. You nailed it.
That's the right question. That is the right question. Well, you know, here was the difference. When I did my men's weekend, the men's weekend gave me a template of what I should be looking for in a woman. And I never had that before. I never knew what I should be looking for.
Right.
And when you know what you're looking for, then you have to be like, oh, like if you're looking for a Bentley, you need to have a certain amount of income to have that Bentley.
Yes.
If you're looking for a certain type of woman, you got to become a certain type of man to get that certain type of woman.
So what were you
manifesting?
So what were you manifesting?
Hold on, what was your question?
You gotta be too detailed.
Because you talked about the type, type of woman.
So the weekend gave me this kind of template of what I should be looking for in a woman. And so when I was at the meetings, I saw Monica and I got to know Monica. And at the time, my now wife, at that time, she was engaged to somebody, a guy who was an attorney. And I was like not with any women at all. Like all the men were telling you're not to be in any relationships. Like no relationships for you. So I was on a no dating spree. Okay. She was engaged. So like we were both completely off limits to each other, and so we were both very real with each other. We became friends in the business, and we worked together in the business, but we were completely like not. She wasn't available. She was getting married. Right. And I was like learning not to be in relationships. So
try not to be a homewrecker.
Yeah, so that wasn't gonna happen. So honestly, I was my true authentic self with her. And how often are you really your true authentic self when you're always your best version?
Yeah, that's true.
Yes, that's true.
This is my version.
Yeah.
But the truth is, in this situation, since she was off the market, and
you didn't care. Market,
I was like very me.
Yeah.
And I was 100% me, and she was 100% her, and so we were friends. And then, and in that time, I started to get to know her, and I started to realize that she had many of the things that the men's weekend said I should be looking for. And what were those things?
Right.
Those things were, one, they said you want someone who has a good model of family. And she's Mexican. She comes from a wonderful family. Parents were married 40 years, you know what I mean? And 4 siblings, kids 5, and great relationship with her father. And the men's weekend says, hey, don't marry a woman who has damaged relationship with her father.
True.
Because that's
true.
going to carry into your marriage. And so there was these things that I was looking for that the weekend told me I should be looking for. And as I got to know Monica, I realized she had a lot of these things. And I even remember when we were recording, she said, sometimes it feels like you're interviewing me. I guess I wasn't very good at it, because I was kind of saying, well, tell me about how it is with your dad, and tell me about your parents' relationship. And I want to know all these things because what the fuck did I know about raising a family?
Yeah.
I just told you where I came from.
Yeah. What
did I know about taking care of a family and creating a family life and creating family traditions and what the heck experience do I have in that other than watching TV or seeing other people, man?
Right. Yeah. To raise another human being.
And if I want a family, then I need someone who's gonna know what that looks like and help me with that. And I saw that in Monica. And there's a lot of other things. She's incredible in so many ways, beautiful, amazing, smart, all that stuff. But I really saw that too, which was this is a person, she challenges me. I'm very smart. I'm very picky. I don't like people who are slow. She has all those things, and she knows family, and she's an incredible family person. And she has taught me how to be. I looked at her like, this is the kind of person not only do I want to be with, this is the kind of person I want to be. Mm-hmm. And so that was what really attracted me to her, and I locked in on that, and the rest is history.
And it's crazy because as a man, when you're kind of, and not envious, but that you look up to a woman, it's it's a little different, right? Because most men, you could sit there and say, oh no, like they look up to other men, but the fact that, because I got the same feeling when I first met her, she's very strong, very independent, like. so I could see what drew you to her.
And she's
you know?
younger than me. So, I mean, she's attractive, younger. I was, oh, yeah. But you're right, you know, very ahead of her time and very powerful person. And at that time, I was a trainee and she was already a broker here. So she was already established.
Were you somewhat, was any part of you intimidated?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, yeah.
Because I was a little intimidated myself.
Let me tell you, when you come from what we talked about, you guys, like our backgrounds, I don't know about you guys, but I have had a lot of self-esteem issues.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of inferiority issues and complexes about my self-worth and am I good enough and all those things. And so, it comes up for sure. And when you're with someone like that, you're like, oh, am I good enough for her? And, you know, am I going to bring her down? But also the flip side of that is if you're the right kind of person, I think the way I like to think of myself as I'm going to rise to that occasion. I'm going to rise up to be the man that can be with a person like that I want to be with. You know?
She made you step up in a sense. Yeah.
And when you marry up, you have to step up.
Right.
You know, so marry up, guys.
Right here. So I got a question for you. I got one here. I got a question for MJ. So what are you taking from this as far as, again, he's single, ladies. So what are you taking from the type of woman that you want to be with?
I mean, I do agree with, you know, when I went to therapy for when my ex left and so forth, and just moving on for the future on what type of woman I would want. Yeah, definitely someone who has a good foundation with their family.
Yeah.
I think that's very, very important. So, I mean, this is not really about me and the qualities I'm looking for.
Trying to pimp them out right now.
You know, but let's go back to Rick. So then, at what point did you guys start to say, okay, like we have something here?
Well, I think I knew pretty early, but I had work to do, I think, to earn, you know, I was starting all over, you know, I was coming off a failed business. I told you all the stuff. So when I met her, I was starting all over as a man in my early 30s or mid 30s already. I'm like 34 years old at the time. You know, I'm not a kid anymore. And,
I think it's so important to have a strong woman in your life, you know. Shout out to my wife, Tosh. I appreciate you. Happy birthday today. Yeah, she should have left me a handful of times, you know, but she stuck in there with me. She talked to me. She guided me, you know. She was always there. She showed me, you know, like just nothing but love, compassion, and she knew the ability for her to see that, you know, inside I was broken. Like I was broken and I genuinely needed help. And like you were saying, something we got to ask for help. And I was someone that did not ask for help. No, I can do it. I got it. I'll deal with it. I'll handle it. You know what I mean? And she helped me persevere through so much. And because of her, I am who I am today. And I am going to be who I am in the future, you know?
You actually cued me, though. I now remember what you were
talking
about, and my train of thought came back, which was, I had to kind of prove it to her that I was worthy in some ways, but also I think that she saw, you know, I feel like when we're, like some of the stuff I described to you, when you're struggling to get through that, you don't see your own greatness, but other people will see your greatness. You know, God can see your greatness, people around you can see your greatness, but what really matters is what we see in the mirror, you know, and I didn't really see greatness when I looked in the mirror. I saw like a gun-shy little boy who was broken and kind of stared when I looked in the mirror. But she saw a lot of potential and greatness in me and helped me see my own greatness, James. And so that was really, you know, a big deal. But, you know, we saw that we had something. There was a real connection there. And, you know, obviously at some point... The real story was we were by the copy machine, and one day I found out that she was not engaged. You're
like, yes!
It's like a copy machine moment. I'm like, what? You're not engaged anymore? It's like, hey,
you're like, hold on, back it up.
Like, I'm dating.
You're like,
so I mean, we had that. We had great chemistry, and over time, we just learned that, we worked really well together. We were a good team, and, we wanted to do the business as a family business and grow together and do this together. So we got, we went for mentorship. We reached out to leadership and asked for advice on how we should go about it, if it was a good idea and strategies, etc. And we did it. And long story short, we merged our businesses together, got engaged, had a couple-year engagement, got married, and we've been married now over 10 years. We've been doing our business together over 15 years. And, this is, I love what we do. I love being in business with my family. You asked earlier, so all right, what's it like working with your wife?
Yeah,
right? That's the question.
Yeah,
That's a long way to get there. You know what? It can be very hard. What I think the biggest challenge is separating sometimes your business from your marriage. And in business you can be very sharp. Hey, da 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 da, but you don't want to be sharp. Da da da. Maybe with your wife, but sometimes it happens that way. So I think that's where it's challenging, James, is just having separation, having date night and not making it all about the
work.
Business, work, you know what I mean? And can you separate it? Can you have conversations that aren't strictly about work all the time? And can you separate it? And at the same time, do you love it enough as a couple that you can bring it home and work on it? And do you believe in it enough to bring your children into it and bring your family into it and the culture of it? And I just fell in love with the culture. I told you the culture of WFG is about growth and development and helping people and making a difference and, financial education and all these things, helping people. And I always wanted to help people. My degree's in psychology, but there's no money in psychology, man, unless you're like Dr. Drew on the radio or something or Dr. Phil. So, here I get to work with people and make a difference and, work with my family, and it's inheritable and passable to my family. And, I get to have valuable relationships with people and purpose. And I'm not really working that, like, it's not like I'm out there working in a garage or out there doing labor or having to do electrical work or contracting work. I mean, it's not actual, like, so I'm very lucky.
Yeah.
I feel very lucky, and there's a lot of residual income. So now it's allowed me to design my life and, do all the things I want to do now that aren't just, my health and all my spirituality, my mental health. All those things are important to me as well.
Do you guys have like an agreement where it's like once we're off work we don't talk about work, or you guys like safe word? No, it's not no work. Yeah.
No, we don't. I mean, and we just have to use our best judgment. I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes it is all consuming, and that's business. That's a family business. If you and your family own any business, it's the family business, and it can at times kind of be prominent and take over at times, but there are times when we recognize, hey, you know what, we gotta take a break. Like, let's both agree tonight we're not talking about this stuff,
right?
And you have to do that sometimes, bro.
I kind of relate. I mean, me and my wife, we don't have a business, but it's like, oh, babe, let's go out on date night. So we go out on date night, but all we're doing is talking about the kids.
Right.
We're just constantly talking about the kids, and just like, I mean, I love my kids. However, like, let's change up the conversation a little bit.
I don't want to give all my secrets away, but what I will do is I'll prep a little list of like items where we can talk, little talking
points. Pull up the sleeve.
Talking points. I got a few talking points. You know what I mean? I try to be prepared. A prepared man is a man who is prepared.
So, so you have a child, right?
I do.
So when you found out you guys were pregnant, what went on through your mind? The fact that you had such a harsh upbringing. Did you ever have any doubts about yourself becoming a father?
Definitely. Frankly, when I got married a little older. I was like 42 when I got married, and I told Monarch, I said, well, what if I'm too old to have kids? What if I'm shooting blanks?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I said,
yeah.
What if I'm shooting blanks and we get married and, you really want kids and I can't produce them? Is that going to ruin our marriage?
Yeah,
Are we
yeah.
gonna have
That
nothing
deal
to work
breaker,
off?
yeah.
Is that a deal breaker? And, she said, no, it wasn't. And that was really the truth was probably not more so afraid of not being able to have kids, but probably my fear of committing to have kids.
Yeah.
Because of what you said. That's the truth, right? So, yeah, I was, but we got married and, I'm 42, now going 43, and we're in business together. She's not getting any younger. Like, are we really going to have, like, no kids, So one day I was just like, why don't you just get off the pills, the birth control pills? And she did, and like literally the next month or two.
Man,
hard work.
So you had that super soaker that potent.
It was just ready.
I don't want to look at you too long. You're 9 months later.
Sharpshooter.
It's ready. So, she got pregnant, and full disclosure, she had a really difficult pregnancy, and my daughter was born 60 days early. She
so
2
premature.
months early. Yeah, she spent 60 days in the NICU.
Oh my gosh!
And was born 3 pounds 9 ounces, and both of them were in the ICU. And the doctor even said that night that
your wife and your daughter.
Yeah, my wife was in the ICU, like the high intensive ICU. I don't know what it's called. And my daughter was in the NICU, and I remember going in there, and I'm like, all right, well, is my daughter gonna make it? And he said, well, I can't tell you.
Oh
I
my gosh!
And I don't know if your wife's gonna make it. I suggest you go home, get some rest, come back in the morning, and we'll see where we are. They're going to be under observation. You can't be in the room with either one of them right now. They're in intensive care. So I remember, even to back up, what happened was we just had our normal 7-month checkup. And we go to the doctor, did the 7-month checkup, and they do some tests, and they say, you need to go to the hospital right away. And it's like 11 o'clock in the morning, 12 o'clock. We're not prepared for that. I'm like, oh man. So we drive to the hospital, and there's an in and out there. I said, we better get some food, because if we're going to the hospital, we're not going to be out for a while. Mm-hmm. So we go in and out, and we go in the hospital, and they check her in, and she has something called preeclampsia, which is a pregnancy condition.
Okay.
And we go in, and she's checked in the emergency room, and they all come in. Our doctor comes, checks her out. And he basically says, I recommend you have emergency surgery. There's a very good probability that your wife will not survive this pregnancy if you don't. And, you may lose the baby either way. But if you want to preserve your wife's life, I highly recommend you have emergency surgery immediately tonight. So the decision was as much as I love my daughter, at the time, she was just, and so I was like, all right, well, we got to save my wife's life. Let's get the baby out, and we'll see how the baby is. So they had the emergency surgery. It was very hard on Monica. Riley was born. I was in there. It was a very, very scary time. Probably the scariest moment of my life.
Especially as a parent, as a new parent.
Well, you're doing all the baby stuff, the wife, the pregnancy, the baby showers, the baby room. I painted the baby room, the crib, all that stuff. You're doing all that, and then you have to go in 2 months early for emergency, and then you leave at midnight or 1 in the morning, and the doctor says, we don't know if they're going to make it, come back in the morning, and we'll see how it goes, And so I go, and I remember going home and just collapsing on the wood floor and just crying and praying to God that, my wife and my daughter would survive this. And, that obviously they did.
The power of
prayer. But it was very scary. But we have a beautiful family, and, it's, my daughter's really strong, and we're stronger for it. We're stronger for it as a family. And, but yeah, I don't know where that all came from, but yeah.
No, man, that's
great.
That's
that's how it went down.
Deep. That's so deep, man. That's so deep. And now that because now it seems like you're killing it as a father, right? So what has kept you on track?
I just think just being in fatherhood, being in husbandhood, just being in family, and every day you got to continue to grow and get better as your family grows. You have to grow with your family, you know, and you can't stay the same person as you are when you got married 20 years later and raise a family and be the same person. You have to evolve and change to be the father and the husband and grow and all those things. And so for me, it's just them there every day as a reminder that I have to be the best version of me every day, you know, and that whatever I'm showing them is like that, like no matter what I say, I can't say to my daughter, hey, eat healthy, be healthy. Like
A
I have to
hypocrite
be,
parent.
I have to
Yeah.
be it, you
Yeah.
know. Like even like we have these fires here in our town, and all these fires. There's all this pollution in the air, and you know, like I want her to wear a mask around to protect her a little bit from all the chemicals in the air. But I can't say, honey, wear your mask, and I'm not wearing a mask, so I got to wear the respirator mask too to be a good example. And I think that comes with how I treat her mom, how I show up at work, how I take care of my body, how we take care of our home, how I show up in every area is what matters most. And they remind me that I have to do that every day because they're right there. It's right there in my face every day. How can I not remember I have to be my best version, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's one of the reasons why I apologize to my kids, because I wasn't being the example. I wasn't being who I should have been showing them to be, you know. And now after I apologize, it's like, okay, now I got to get up and every day, you know, I got to push through anything that's coming my way. And just recently, January 7th, you know, my dad passed away.
So
And thank you. And like I was really like, it was just, everything was just so foggy, and I was just saying, you know, I'm glad that I had, you know, like James and other friends like constantly calling me, hey, how you doing, what's going on, you know, you gotta like, because that was just like, all right, keep pushing through, you know. My family was there as well, and it was just keep pushing through. And like it was just like, okay, like I feel it, I hear it, I appreciate it, I'm grateful for it. And it's just like, okay, now it's just in my head, how do I get through this fog, how do I get through like not going back to drinking and not going back, you know what I mean? Because again, my dad was like my best friend, you know. We talked, and he showed me so much how to, you know, be a family man and how to take care of your family, always work hard, always take care of your family, you know. And it was difficult, and having people, you know, like my support group, you know what I mean, was something that really, really pushed me through and really got me through the fog. And you know, I know it comes in waves, and it's going to continue to come in waves for the rest of my life, but I see the light at the end of the tunnel, and just I want to be that better. I want to be that example. I want to be that person to show my boys, to show my daughter, you know, this is a man the type of man you should marry. These are boys, you should be this type of man, especially when it comes to women, to take care of them, to, you know, make sure you're respectful and be kind and loving and nurturing. So, yeah.
yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, Rick, man, I'm just, I really didn't know much about that part of your guys' lives. So like, man,
thank you for sharing.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, man. Like that was
been very enlightening.
Yeah, man. Like it honestly, what I actually take back from all this is, you know, you're a man that could have gave up. You could have gave up, but it seemed like you're always smart. You know, despite, I mean, I'm pretty sure as a young man, your dad wasn't telling you to go to college.
No.
Right? But the fact that like you still went to college, you got your degree. Yeah, you're sort of still trying to figure shit out. You hit that point in your life, and by the grace of God, you met that guy, Brian. You asked for help. You went into that man's group. It's like everything just fell into place. You know, everything in life fell into place. And then now it's like you're a successful businessman. You have a wonderful family. Of course, we always got work to do. The work never stops. The work never stops. And for me, like it's just like I love to hear these comeback stories. You know, like hearing your story, like, you know, it pushes me, and that's why being part of this team that you guys invited me to be in. At first, I was skeptical, but then as I'm starting to get to know the people, I'm starting to look at things differently. You know, because people have tried to talk me out. Yeah. Right? They have. And I'm pretty sure you felt this. I'm pretty sure you experienced the same thing.
Nothing to you. I mean, the only difference between you and I and the business is I've just been here longer.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
But nothing's going to happen to you that, or experience, you're not going to experience anything that I haven't already experienced. I can just be certain of that.
And overall, what I've gotten out of this is like, you guys are just good people.
Thank you.
You know, honestly, like you guys
Appreciate
are really,
that.
really, really good people, and it's an environment that I would be so grateful to be, you know, a part of. But I guess do you have one last question to ask them?
Just thoughts, you know, like how like important it is. You know, me personally, I feel that God puts us in situations and through, you know, trials throughout our life to, yeah, we might see like, oh, you know, I'm failing or I'm not doing well, but it's also to like see, well, why was this person put in my life? What's the lesson here? What do I take out of it? And what am I going to do with it in order to move differently and be successful? And you know what I mean? So no, I just want to say thank you for sharing, Rick, because this has been very, very enlightening, and I'm taking down those notes on the wrist, but definitely.
I appreciate you guys having me. I would just say, like, I think the biggest thing that I learned through all of that and from the men's weekend and everything that's led to this is that we all have addictive natures to us, many of us, especially those of us who come from maybe some backgrounds that, you know, lead to more of those kind of addictive type of patterns and behaviors and personalities. And what I've learned is to replace my addictions with commitments. And the more I fill my life with commitments, the less time there is for addictions. And if I live a life driven by commitment, then, you know, I'm constantly improving, being a good example, and I don't have to think so much. I made a commitment, I go, it's done. Like the toe plunge, right?
Yes.
I'm going to go do a toe plunge every day for 5 minutes. I made a commitment. You just go, you do it, and you do it. You know?
Discipline.
You know?
Discipline.
So, thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, man. Thank you.
Appreciate
Like,
it.
honestly. Yes. All right. Well, anything else you want to add?
I'm good. Everything is good. I have a lot to think about, a lot to change, a lot to improve on. But
okay, Rick. So just real quick. So if anybody wants to know more about finances, where can they find you guys?
Well, I would just say that, you know, they can reach out to you, touch base with you, to touch base with us. You know, we're about financial education and helping families get ahead financially, obviously, and making financial services and investing accessible to everybody, not just high wealthy, high net worth individuals. And we focus on educating people.
All right, Rick. Well, thank you again, man. Thank you, brother, for everything. We appreciate you.
Thanks for having me on, man. I appreciate you guys.
All right, guys. Well, that is it. Catch us every Friday, riding the wave, 8 a.m.
platforms.
On all platforms. We love you. We see you guys on the next one.
Peace.